There are moments in life when silence doesn't mean peace. It means something is missing. In a noisy world like ours, where everyone is shouting for attention, fighting to be heard, and trying to prove a point, silence can feel like a curse. But for one boy in the small, forgotten town of Unteje, silence became his ally. His name was Somtu, the boy who could talk to anyone, until one day he couldn't talk at all. Somtu was that child everyone in the compound knew, not because he was rich or brilliant, far from it, but because he could talk for Africa. He would greet the neighbors, crack jokes with the Okada riders, even announce market news like a human radio. If someone lost their chicken, Somto would narrate the entire investigation, from feathers to footprints, as if it was a Netflix series. He had one gift, his voice, and oh, how he loved to use it. His classmates at community secondary school in Teje called him Mr. MC. Teachers used him to announce inter-house sports. Church used him to lead drama nights. Even his mother used his voice as her alarm clock every morning. But as they say, the higher you go, the thinner the air. Somto was climbing a ladder he didn't even know existed. A ladder that will soon crumble under his feet. It was a Friday morning, just before the school's annual speech competition, a big event that attracted everyone in the community. Somto had written his speech himself, titled The Power of the Nigerian Youth. He practiced for weeks, using his cracked mirror as an audience. He'd shout, gesture, and pause like he'd seen TV presenters do. His friends teased him, saying he was rehearsing for AIT News instead of JSS 3 exams. But Somto didn't care. He wanted that first prize, a new dictionary, a certificate, and bragging rights. When his turn came, the whole hall went silent. Somto walked up, held the microphone like a warrior holding a sword. And then, nothing. No word came out, not a single sound. His mouth opened, but all that escaped was air. It was like someone had pressed mute on his life. The audience laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. Then the laughter turned into whispers, and whispers turned into pity. Somto's eyes filled with tears, and his knees buckled. That day, the boy who always spoke couldn't say a thing. Doctors called it sudden vocal paralysis. They said maybe a nerve snapped, maybe stress, maybe something spiritual. In Nigeria, everything mysterious eventually becomes spiritual. His mother, Mama Somto, cried from morning to evening. She carried him from hospital to prayer house, from prayer house to herbalist, from herbalist to mountain. Some prophets said his voice was stolen by jealous classmates. Others said he spoke too much and angered the spirits of silence. The boy who once made noise was now an echo. He could hear everything but couldn't reply. At first, his friends visited him often, laughing and writing jokes on paper. But one by one, they stopped coming. The boy who once entertained everyone became the quiet shadow everyone pitied. 3 months later, something strange happened. Somto started hearing rhythms in ordinary sounds. The sound of rain on the zinc became a drum beat. The chirping of birds sounded like melodies, and the hum of his mother's old sewing machine formed a bass line. He began to record these sounds on his old technophone. He'd replay them, layer them, and notice patterns. Without knowing it, Somto had discovered music. Not the kind from radio, but music in the noise of everyday life. When people quarreled outside, he didn't hear insults. He heard rhythm. When NEPA brought light and everyone shouted, "Up NEPA!" He heard a choir. His world became a symphony, and he, the silent conductor. People in the neighborhood began calling him radio without volume. Some said he had run mad quietly. Even the local children would imitate him, pretending to open their mouths and make no sound. But instead of anger, Somto smiled. He used their laughter as fuel. He began collecting anything that could make sound: broken plates, spoons, old buckets, tins, and empty bottles. He built a small corner in his mother's kitchen and called it his studio. Every morning, he'd hit the plates in rhythm, record it, and mix it with the sound of the environment. The boy who lost his voice was creating music without singing a word. At first, it sounded chaotic, like a baby goat drumming in a market. But slowly, it started making sense. His compositions carried emotion. He told stories of pain, of noise, of silence, of hope. Mama Somto didn't understand it, but she believed in her son. When neighbors mocked, she'd simply say, "Leave him. This boy is building something." And indeed, he was. A year passed. Somto's classmates had moved on. But one day, his former principal visited their compound. He said the school wanted to celebrate Creativity Day, an event to showcase students with unique talents. He remembered Somto's former brilliance and invited him to perform. Mama Somto almost said no, afraid her son would be mocked again. But Somto nodded eagerly. This time, he wasn't going to speak. He was going to be heard differently. The hall was packed. Parents, teachers, students, and the same classmates who had once laughed at him. Somto walked to the stage with a bucket, spoons, bottles, and his small phone connected to a speaker. The audience whispered, wondering if he had finally lost it. Then he pressed play. From the speakers came the sound of rain, thunder, birds, and laughter, all woven into rhythm. He began to drum softly with spoons and bottles. The rhythm grew. He told a story, his story. Every beat carried emotion: the pain of losing his voice, the confusion of hospitals, the laughter of mockers, the silent nights of discovery. The audience went quiet. Then slowly, claps began to rise. Then cheers. Then shouts. By the end, everyone stood. Teachers cried. Even the principal looked stunned. The boy who couldn't speak had spoken louder than words ever could. After the event, a man approached Mama Somto. He was from a media company in Enugu, a sound engineer who had come to record the school event for a local TV segment. He said he had never heard anything like Somto's performance. It was raw, real, emotional. He offered to take Somto to his studio for a few weeks to train him. Mama Somto agreed, though afraid. But something in her heart said this was the moment everything had been leading to. At the studio, Somto learned to produce music using software, digital drums, and voice effects. He communicated with hand signs, texts, and smiles. Within months, he was producing tracks that stunned professionals. His silence had taught him to listen deeper than anyone else. Soon, his sound was everywhere: social media, radio, and even a Nollywood trailer. People didn't know his face, but they knew his tag: a soft bell chime, followed by a heartbeat sound. It became his signature, and they called him the silent producer. 2 years later, during a late night session in the studio, something strange happened. Somto was alone, mixing a new track. It was a remix of the first beat he ever made, the one that started with rain on the zinc. As he listened to it, tears filled his eyes. He felt something in his throat: a vibration, a pressure, a release. He coughed once, then again, and then he said a word: done. Just one word, but it echoed through the studio like thunder. Somto froze. He touched his neck, cried, laughed, screamed. His voice was back, softer, deeper, different, but back. When he told his mother, she fell to her knees in tears. For her, it was a miracle. For him, it was a full circle. He realized something profound. He had to lose his voice to find his purpose. Because if he never lost it, he would never have listened deeply enough to hear the music hiding inside life itself. Months later, Somto was invited to perform at a national youth summit in Abuja. This time not as a contestant, but as a guest performer. When he stepped on stage, the crowd didn't know his story. They only knew the legend of the silent producer. He began the same way, drumming softly, playing sounds of life, laughter, rain, and heartbeats. But this time, at the end of the performance, he took the microphone. Everyone gasped. Was this the silent boy? And then he said, I lost my voice once, but I found something louder. The crowd erupted. Even the Minister of Youth Affairs stood up, clapping with tears. That night, Nigeria met Somto, the boy who turned silence into symphony. After that performance, things changed fast. Somto got scholarships, invitations, and collaborations. But he didn't chase fame. He used it to help others like him. He started a small foundation called The Listeners. It was for kids who had speech, hearing, or learning difficulties. He taught them how to make music using simple sounds, tapping bottles, banging things, clapping hands. He showed them that silence isn't weakness, it's another language. Soon, schools began to invite him for workshops. He became a symbol of hope, not just for the voiceless, but for anyone who ever felt unheard. People started saying, even silence can sing. Just ask Somto. One day, he visited his old school again, the same hall where his voice first disappeared, the same stage where he once froze in front of everyone. He stood there quietly. No lights, no crowd, just him and the echo of his past. Then he smiled and whispered, thank you. Not to the school, not to fate, but to silence itself. Because silence had taught him what sound never could. Life sometimes takes away what you think you can't live without, not to destroy you, but to show you something bigger. Somto's story reminds us that delay is not denial, and silence is not absence. Sometimes God turns off one gift so you can discover another. And sometimes the loudest people are those who don't speak at all. So next time life goes silent, don't panic. Maybe it's just tuning your frequency, preparing you for your own rhythm, your own sound, your own voice. As Somto once wrote in his music journal, when the world went quiet, I began to hear everything clearly, even myself. And that is how the boy who lost his voice found his gift. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, hit the like button, drop a comment, share it with your people, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. See you in the next one.